G'day everybody, and welcome back to your favourite Model T Ford channel. So over the past few weeks, probably months actually, my Model T has been playing up a little bit. That's to say, she has been misfiring and generally misbehaving. And what I've been able to narrow it down to, it looks like some bad contacts on the coil box and possibly in other places as well. So if you haven't already figured it out, we are going to be pulling apart the coil box today. And as well as that, I'm going to be popping in some replacement coils just to see if we get any difference in performance. Now, up to, well, for the past 10 years or so, Liz has actually been running with the reproduction plastic trembler coils. But what I'm going to do is I was able to acquire some proper wooden ones, so they are period correct. And we'll pop those in and see if it makes a difference as well. But the main focus of this video is to strip down Liz's coil box, and we'll pop in some new contacts. I've got some new brass contacts to put in. Or when I say new, they've come from another Model T, but they're in better condition. So we'll pop those in and I will film the entire process for you so you can see how it's done. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so before we start undoing anything in here, what I'm going to do is I've got 4 different colours of electrical tape here. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I will put a little piece of the tape on each of the wires here so that we know which one's going to go where. Because obviously we don't want to get those mixed up, otherwise the firing order will be all out of whack and she won't run very well. So I've got I'll put some electrical tape on each wire, and then to make doubly sure that I put everything on back in the right order, I shall also take a picture of everything as well. So feel free to fast forward this section of the video because this bit's pretty boring. So I'll just pop that on there, a different one for each one, and then I'll pop a little bit of the electrical tape on the firewall as well, obviously, so that I can see which one pertains to which one. So there's number 2 there. Now I do need to be extra careful with these to make sure that I don't break anything off, because otherwise I'll end up having to make up new terminals, which I don't really fancy doing. It's okay. Right, so there's our identifiers there. As I say, I'll just put a little small square of the corresponding electrical tape on the firewall so that I can actually see which wire goes where when it's time to put it all back together again. Okay, now for the eagle-eyed among you may have observed, there is one particular post which I have not colour-coded, and well, realistically I don't need to because all of the others are already marked, and that is of course the ground contact at the bottom. Okay, so as you can see now, I've gone ahead and I have colour-coded each of the coil leads here, so we can't possibly get those mixed up when it comes to putting it all back together. What I might also do is, even though I'm pretty confident I know where all the spark plug leads go, I might just go ahead and put a colour code on each of those as well, because if I'm just happen to be not paying attention, it would be only too easy to accidentally put those back on in the wrong order, and then of course, the engine won't run. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put a small piece of this electrical tape on the spark plug leads underneath their corresponding colour here, to make sure that they go back on, I should say, in the correct order. Okay. Right, so that's all the spark plug leads tagged, and it's all of the coil leads tagged, like the input leads to the coils are tagged as well, so we know where everything goes. Okay, so the next step is to start undoing these small nuts here that hold each of the wires on, taking care not to damage anything. Although what I am going to be doing is replacing these porcelain tubes as well. I have some spares of those as well. So, all right, so we'll start stripping that down. Now I'm going to be taking care to save the nuts here because I only have a limited number of them, and some of them will need to be reused on the new pegs. So we'll just pop these leads out of the way, and I'll just put these nuts down here on the running board to one side so that we can actually find them later. Now this is the first time since I've had this car that I've ever actually had any issues with the ignition system, so she's actually behaved pretty well, I've got to say. If you're a Model T owner yourself, feel free to let me know in the comments if you've ever had to do this job. That is to say, having to do a coil box rebuild. I'd be interested to hear how you guys got on with it too. Okay, so that's all the spark plug leads off. I'll just tuck those down there out of the way. Okay, now we can start to undo the wires for the input side of the coil. Now, oh, that one was a bit loose. Okay, and I'm taking extra special care when I'm removing these that I don't damage these connectors. I don't think you can just about see those on the camera. Taking care not to damage these connectors, obviously, because otherwise I've got the job of putting new ones on. So, and nobody really wants to have to do that. All right, pop those off. I apologise if my hands get in the way of you seeing what's going on, but this part's pretty self-explanatory. It's just undoing these nuts. That's fine. Okay, so the next step is now to actually remove the coil box itself, and to do that, what do we have? We have one nut here, and another one tucked in over the other side, which you probably can't quite see on camera there, but I say there's one nut each side on my coil box. It looks like there's supposed to be 4, but I haven't actually touched anything much under the bonnet here since I've had this car. So I've been very fortunate, I guess, that it all runs very, very well up until this point. But for 10 years, I can't really complain. I haven't had to service it electrically, apart from changing the spark plugs a couple of times. But hey, what can you do? All right, so I'll just find the right size spanner for these nuts here, and then we can remove the coil box from the dashboard. Now, being an American-built car, of course, everything under here is Imperial. So these nuts, on my car at least, these are 1/4 inch. So we'll start to undo those. I've got that one loose. And the one on the other side, there's been an interesting wiring job been done in here, which has got some non-standard wiring in here. Actually, that might have been something I added to it. What I might do is take the hood off completely so that we can get better access. That might make things a bit easier. And I should be able to actually access that nut from the other side much more readily. There we go. Oh gosh, that is loose, isn't it? Let's see if I can reach the coil box and hold it in place. Oh, the lid fell off. Okay, this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting because I really need about 6 hands to do this. I've got the interesting situation here where the bolt under the dash here is actually a dome bolt, so I've got to try and get a hold of it with a pair of pliers. Oh. Right, I've got blasted mirrors in the way too. That's all right. I'm sure nobody that has had a Model T has ever had everything go 100% to plan when they're pulling it to bits. There we go, I think I might just have got that one. Okay, now we've got to get this other one off, which should be reasonably straightforward actually. Now that one's going to cooperate nicely, that's good. That one came straight off. Okay, oh, there's the coil box. Okay. All right, I'll try and get this on camera as best as I can. So as you can see, the coil box is free and it's not in bad shape. So all of these contacts, oh sorry, all of these posts here are actually in pretty good shape actually. But the thing I really wanted to show you was actually on the inside of the coil box itself. You can see this particular contact right here, only half of it's still there, the other half is snapped off. So I'm thinking, the original plan was to only just replace the broken one, but what I've got in the box, which I'm just about to show you, is a whole new set of porcelains for it, which, as you can see, these ones have gone all black and yuck, and I'd really like to have some new ones. So what we'll do, I will change them all out, probably with the exception of this peg down here, because I don't actually have a replacement for the negative connections. So I'll probably leave that one and we'll change out all of the others. So just give me a second to reset up the camera and then we'll continue. Okay, so what we need to do now is go ahead and undo these additional nuts on each post, and that will actually allow each contact to just slide out of the coil box itself. Alright, so the easiest way to do that, because these are actually dome bolts, they are actually, although these ones are coming undone quite well. So the idea is you want to undo these nuts here, put those to one side, they are copper nuts, and then just gently tap that out. No, emphasis on gently. Yeah. Okay, so my bolts that I've just taken out, by the looks of things, they're actually made of copper. Oh no, these replacement ones are as well. Okay. So now that we've got that apart, and as you can see the old porcelains, they are rather grubby, and obviously they're supposed to be white or closer to white than that. I'm probably pretty certain you probably can clean them, but I've never attempted it. I've got some other ones here which are in a bit better condition. Now the idea is we pop the new contact in, taking care to make sure that the fingers of the contact are facing outwards, in other words outwards into the coil box, and then we can go ahead and we can feed that back into the hole. And what am I doing? I wanted to use the original ones because they are in better shape, and just carefully pass that back through the hole. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got here. What's going on here? Oh, I see. Okay, well I just learnt something. There is a left and a right, and it would appear that I've got it obviously back to front. So I need to look at the other ones that we've got here. Something I didn't observe is that the contacts actually have a left and a right, so I need to make sure I'm putting in the correct ones. Now I've got a whole box of them here, so I need to make sure that I'm matching them up. There we go, there's one. I'll just undo the nut on that, which is a bit, it's on there a bit tight, so we'll grab hold of that with the pliers and very carefully slacken off the nut so I can actually undo it. There we go. I should be able to undo that by hand now. There we go, straight off. Okay, so when you do eventually put them back together, I'll show you on one of the old bolts here. Make sure, I don't know if you can just quite see it on there, but on the end of the bolt it does have a square shoulder on it, which actually corresponds with, I'll just try and get that to focus. You'll notice it has a square hole in the end of the contact. So make sure that when you put the bolt through, that you actually line up that square shoulder on the bolt with the square hole in the contact, otherwise it's not going to be seated properly. So I've done that with this one. I'll just bring that a bit closer so you can see. So you can see that that one is seated properly. Then what we want to do on the back is put on the new porcelain, which I've got here. I'll just turn that round. That literally just slides over the top like that. And then, when I find it, I haven't got any new ones, but the old ones are okay. These little felt washers go over the end of the bolt first, before we put the locking nut in place. Now the reason for that felt washer is because you don't want that hard steel nut right up against the porcelain and risk cracking it. So we want to do these up fairly tight, but at the same time we don't want to over tighten them again such that we end up fracturing the porcelain. Okay, so that's one peg done, only another 8 to go. So I'll stop talking now and do this, and I'll just do a bit of a speeded up montage of what follows, because the process is the same for all of the others. Just taking care, of course, to make sure that make sure that you actually get the left and the right facing contacts in the right position. These ones are some of them are actually better than others, but that's to be expected. Anyway, I'll go ahead now and change out all of the others and just speed up that process so you can see it. Okay, now the other thing I will point out here is some of these contacts, as it turns out, I'm going to have to reuse the old ones, but that's not a problem at all. But what I am going to do while I've got them out of the coil box is take the opportunity to actually clean them. And I've just got some 80 grit sandpaper here, which is perfectly fine for this, and just carefully rub the contact faces so that they're nice and shiny again. I don't know if that comes up on camera. You can see I've just roughed them up just enough just to give them a shine again, so they're nice and clean, no corrosion on them. And the same with these copper bolts as well. Just make sure that there's no green corrosion showing on there at the point where the bolt contacts it. And then when we pop it back in, we'll have a nice clean contact. Okay, so now that we've got the coil box reassembled and the rebuild is complete, now we'll go ahead and reinstall the coil box itself into the car. Okay, so there won't be an awful lot to see here, but I'll do my best to try and make the video a little bit engaging. Okay, so all you'll see is the contact posts coming through the holes in the firewall, and hopefully we can do this in one go. Ow, just hit my head on the mirror. There we go. Okay, so I'll hold that in place with my finger. And there are two pieces to go on. First of all, this little bracket that holds the wiring loom in place. And then a nut, and that's all there is to it. So we'll just do that one up. Get that into the correct position afterwards, but just for now we'll just get the bolts in place. I'll have to do that from inside the car to reach the hole properly. Okay, so I found some replacement bolts to put the coil box back in with. These ones are actually a bit better quality than the ones I removed. It looks like somebody had actually done a bit of a half-assed job, if I'm honest, whenever this coil box was last rebuilt, but not to worry, that's okay. Interesting thing to note here, at some point I reckon that I suspect my car has had its coil box rebuilt in the past. I don't know how long ago, it's certainly before I owned it. But what I did notice is that instead of the normal 4 bolts holding the coil boxes in place, coil box I should say, there was only the 2 bolts holding it, so interesting, but that's okay. I have plenty of spares floating around that I can use. Okay, and I'm just taking note on each of these wires, just looking at the general condition of the wire, just to see if any of them need to be cleaned or roughed up or anything. I'm pleased to say they're actually looking, all of them are looking quite good actually. There's no corrosion I need to worry about to get rid of, so that's good. All of these contact posts are nice and clean. Very important with all of these electrical contacts to make sure that they are clean, excuse me, so that you get a good transfer of electricity. Nice and tight, nothing can come loose. What I'll do now, so that you don't have to watch the entire process, I'll go ahead and I'll do the same process with the spark plug leads. I'll pop those back on with a washer and the nut to make sure that they all stay nice and snug. Okay, so as you can see, before I go ahead and put the cover back on the coil box, which is now reinstated in its home, I've gone ahead and installed the wooden coils in my coil box as opposed to the plastic ones that were in there originally. And now it is time to see if we can crank Liz over, get her to start, and see how she sounds with this nicely refreshed and rebuilt coil box. And now, moment of truth. Ignition on. Let's see what we get. Well, as you've seen there guys, the coil box rebuild was a 100% success, I'm pleased to say. And as you heard there, Liz's engine was running absolutely top notch. Well, that wraps it up for this video. As always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you can keep up to date with all my new videos. And with all that said, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care out there.